Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're jumping straight into a phenomenally dense, atmospheric sci-fi fable called The Cartographer and the Soft Air. If you're a fan of stories that completely strip away the shiny armor of traditional fantasy and replace it with raw, entropic survival, well, you're in the right place. We're going to map out exactly how this text shatters everything we've come to expect from the classic hero's journey.
Take a look at this quote. Subrain's bleak realization here instantly sets the grim tone of the whole story. He's not fighting for glory or some magical kingdom. He's literally just fighting for the right to exist as a distinct entity. He calls himself a residue that crossed by storm, hiding from a denser conjugation that's actively trying to override him. So the stakes, they aren't about winning at all. They're about simply not being completely erased.
To really wrap our heads around the mechanics of this dying world and the desperate survival tactics our characters use, we're going to view this through a specific philosophical lens, the Fichtean dialectic. It's basically a structural way to map change. You start with an established idea, that's the thesis. Then you introduce a conflicting force, the antithesis. Finally, they smash together to create an entirely new reality, the synthesis.
So let's kick things off with Section 1, the classic heroic thesis.
And this beautifully lays out our roadmap for the explainer. We're going to start with classic heroic tropes, watch them violently collide with a terrifyingly entropic environment, and then arrive at a completely new, deeply unsentimental method of survival. Keep this three-step structure in the back of your mind as we see what Sir Brain and his companion, Ilara, are actually up against.
In a standard fable, Sir Brain would be your typical isolated warrior conquering his enemies with some unbreakable magic sword, right? He'd demand a boon from the gods and achieve what the text refers to as the seventh solitude, basically a kind of sovereign, majestic isolation. But as we're about to see, that thesis, it's entirely obsolete in the Hidden Garden. The traditional hero literally cannot survive here.
Which brings us to Section 2, entropy and unstable reality.
Look at these immense, world-ending forces. They create an environment where a traditional victory is physically impossible. You've got the absolute zero fortress gathering stillness beneath the city. You've got the dark fire infecting the pure land. And honestly, worst of all, pure negation. It's this dark star constantly revising memory and erasing difference. You can't just stab this enemy with a sword. The very fabric of reality is actively trying to delete you.
To survive all this rising entropy, they are quite literally forced underground. Sir Brain and the cartographer Ilara have to rely on a failing, damaged tool called the Honest Flame just to carve out a temporary bit of safety through roots and stone. They're not marching triumphantly. They're fleeing the denser claims above, sacrificing their own continuity just to keep moving.
Moving right along to Section 3, inverting the archetypes.
Okay, notice how they physically swap their equipment here. It perfectly demonstrates the subversion of those heroic archetypes we talked about. The warrior doesn't carry the unbreakable legendary weapon anymore. Sir Brain carries a staff of compromised synthetic wood, and he insists that Ilara, the witness, keeps the ledger watch. Why? Because he's a fragile projection now, stabilized only by improvised nanocells. If he fails mid-journey, the watch, the only external ledger measuring the approach of permanence or erasure, has to remain with the cartographer who actually knows how to read it.
And you know, this inversion goes way beyond just their physical tools. Instead of brooding in heroic isolation, that seventh solitude from earlier, Brain acts as a literal data transmitter. As they travel, he's constantly feeding Ilara data, alchemical ratios from a tower scroll, his physical nanocell status, prophecies from the colorless plane. But he delivers it all as cold data, not an emotional confession, straight to Ilara's tactile archive. He is desperately proving that connection, simply being legible to another person, is their absolute only defense against being erased by the Dark Star's continuous revision of memory.
All right, Section 4, the Guardian's absolute neutrality.
Think about this for a second. Usually, when a hero meets the ancient spirit of the forest, they want a magical boon, a glorious prophecy, or, at the very least, some kind of recognition of their greatness, right? They want the universe to validate their grand quest.
But the Forest Guardian totally strips away all that epic romance. Manifesting as this flickering threshold presence, neither fully spirit nor mechanism, it offers absolutely no alliance and zero condemnation of their enemies. It has watched the dark fire and the mechanical garden expand, and it observes our heroes with complete neutrality. Literally, the only thing it gives Sir Brain is the cold, hard, factual verification that his distinction from the denser conjugation still exists. Difference itself just barely remains perceptible. This brings us to Section 5, Synthesis of the Soft Error.
This is where the title of the story really shines. The concept of the soft error becomes their synthesis. In a universe where absolute zero and pure negation are actively trying to overwrite reality into one dense, uniform state, any distinction is technically an error in that system. They are the glitches in the universe's attempt to delete them. And that glitch, that soft error, is their absolute only shield. It just means the denser will hasn't succeeded in overriding them quite yet.
And check out Alara's beautifully cold cartographic logic here. It shows that unsentimental verification has completely replaced any illusion of a permanent victory. She doesn't celebrate, she doesn't breathe a sigh of relief. She literally just logs the data. The soft error functions, and that is all they need to know to keep moving forward. The expected grand climax of mastery becomes nothing more than a brief systems check.
Finally, let's hit Section 6, Surviving the Rising Zero.
So they step back into the dark with zero guarantees. The Guardian goes back to its long observation, and the path behind them stays open only as long as that damaged honest flame holds out. Alara keeps the Ledger Watch, which is now ticking to no external hour because standard time and reality are literally breaking down around them. It perfectly captures the grim, incredibly high-stakes atmosphere of a true modern fable. And this quote brilliantly illustrates their final thesis. Neither of them carries the illusion of permanent victory anymore. Survival isn't about winning some grand war against the forces of entropy. It's about stubbornly recording the truth for as long as you possibly can. It's about being truth seekers in a universe of pure negation, fiercely protecting your distinct identity, your soft error, against the rising zero.
The Cartographer and the soft error leaves us with a stark, yet honestly empowering message about finding your anchor when the entire world feels like it's dissolving. I'll leave you to ponder this as we wrap up. How do you map your own truth when the environment around you absolutely demands conformity? Thank you so much for diving into this fascinating subversion of the hero's journey with me. Keep mapping, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.